Hello, everyone, and welcome to the It's Just Coffee break. My name is Ben Bicknell. Thanks for joining us. And together I have joining me the wonderful Liam, our producer.
Hi, guys. It's me again. Mr. Rowan is absent today.
Yes,
like
we miss you, Rowan.
I get to take the reins and he's never coming back.
Stepping in with that fine head of curly hair. It's amazing, mate. I just have a lot of hair envy at the moment.
You can have some.
That's great.
I need to tame it.
You have a little bit to spare.
I need a shearing.
I can just see on the next episode, I just got these random like little curls just popping out of my head there. So
I mean, that's a pot in itself. We should just like switch roles.
Ben's hair pieces.
Full commit.
Let's not do that. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us on our little coffee break where we like to recap on our latest amazing episodes and the little updates. We just finished recording a really great episode with Peter Roberts from Emory University. He's the author or the driver, along with a number of other people behind the Specialty Coffee Transaction Guide. And we went deep into coffee pricing and the pricing structure that we pay for green coffee. Liam, how's the brain feeling?
Full, but I think the more personalities and incredibly qualified people that are navigating the incredibly tough task of verbalizing and bridging the gap between those that buy coffee and the incredible chain behind the scenes that goes global, not just within a city and between a cafe and between, pay pass and the branding of a roaster, the better.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think both of you did really well. Running solo as well, no row, but
I missed him. I felt him on my shoulder, just saying, "Get more dramatic, get more dramatic."
Yeah. Make it shorter.
Be more shorter.
Yeah, be more direct.
Be more direct. Yeah. Look, I mean, Peter's obviously incredibly knowledgeable, and he's a professor of business and he's an economist, so he's very fluent in the conversation on this. But I always find him such an interesting speaker. He's kind of got a great way of bringing it down to some relatable examples, and all of his examples about buying cars or houses and how you would never use a system that is like the C market to kind of go through those purchasing or pricing kind of experiences was really good.
Heartbreaking, to be honest.
Yeah.
Him reminiscing about being like hiking up a volcano in Guatemala, meeting a family on the side that are picking some yellow bourbon. Isn't it? And them not knowing the value of what they're actually doing and not knowing. And that connection between like, there's this amazing amount of labor and specialty labor, and then it just gets thrown in with the rest.
Yeah.
Like, to see, that's the main thing, right? Is that specialty and commodity, that right? Yeah, commodity kind of grade coffee is just like lumped into the same thing.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't make sense.
It's really difficult because like the guide that they started publishing was in 2018, right? I think it was 2018 was the first kind of publishing of this new guide. But up until that point, everyone globally who's in trading of coffee, or certainly producers, even at smaller scale, are generally fairly informed or aware of what the commodity market pricing is. So it's amazing. You travel into some really rural areas and, there's still some gaps in that information, but a lot of people will know what the C price is trading at that week, right? Because it influences what they're about to sell at in the local market. But it's crazy that, as we've said, specialty coffee is such a different product to what that is referring to. It is about quality. It's about all of these other value adds. And because specialty is so connected to a particular place, it's not, the idea of commodity is it can just be interchanged, right? Like one coffee is the same as another coffee. It's just a commodity. It's like one bit of sugar is the same as another bit of sugar. But specialty is saying, no, where it's from is distinctly unique about it. But then the pricing structure of the C market is a pricing structure that's about a non-place specific, a non-context specific thing.
Fully generalized.
Yeah. And they would have no visibility on like, well, what can I ask for my coffee? What's the business case for actually, should I keep growing coffee? I don't know. Like what can I actually buy for it? So I thought that's really great to have that in our industry. And I think I don't know, like you've come at this from like a barista background, working in cafes. How do you think, like, if a barista is listening along to this episode, what do you think that would inform for people in terms of what their job is?
Comes down to like this whole question of value, and a few of our episodes have kind of talked about where that comes from. Whether that's in the branding or like we had Carlos last week, chatting about how the story needs to just go further back. The brand is the origin.
Yes.
And I think that's where it starts. We start bringing the personalities and the actual effort and celebrating it. And that, because that's the point. That's the point of the specialty. The specialty comes from that care and attention. And so, and I think that being translated to the barista, you know, the amount of love that's getting put in from the beginning can be translated to you being like, this is what you're getting. Yeah. And I think that's how it translates. To be honest, I'm embarrassed. And I think it's actually maybe it's important to note that there's such a disconnection between the barista and that. You know, like one, it's like you have a barista that's there and he's, you know, it's just a service job. Mm-hmm. And you might be like hospitality just in its own right, staff cycle through all the time. For an owner to educate the sales process and scripting of that story already takes like an incredible a lot. So I don't know how you make that quicker. If like I guess it's just like bridging the gap between transparency is king here. Sure. You know,
yeah.
So from roaster to the whole chain, the story needs to be kind of captured.
Yeah, I mean, look, honestly, I don't think it's very easy, right? And maybe it's not even all that relevant for like a daily barista gig, right? To kind of go, well, how is coffee bought and sold on the global market and how do those prices get worked out? But I think, if you're a barista and you're kind of interested, it's worth, I think, listening to that episode, mainly because it starts just building this broader context on what are we all involved in? And kind of to your point, I guess like that barista is the end step in the value chain in creating value with a consumer. And it's not that like how the coffee was traded is inherently going to be part of that conversation. But I think, how we want to kind of say we are part of something that's not commodity is how this is all reflected back, both the consumer experience and then in this pricing kind of model. So, I think it's just interesting context to build, not necessarily maybe an episode for the baristas out there that you can apply into your everyday life. But if you keep hearing, like maybe on more and more bags, like people are talking about free on board or FOB pricing and pricing at premiums and it's paid above the market. I think this episode helps you really go, well, maybe some of that language is kind of inherently not that useful. Like above the market is above the commodity market. And what does that really say? You know, the commodity market's moving all over the place. You know, back when the specialty coffee transaction guide was announced, it was at like $1 a pound. And now it's like anywhere between $3.80 and $4.30 a pound. So it's like, are we still paying above the market? What does that mean? Is that actually a valuable piece of our storytelling? Maybe the language needs to change.
For sure. I think there's a few things rolling around my head. Like Peter went into, like the goal would be that this suffering is delegated across the board, which is kind of like is the
wins and the suffering, right?
Like, yes, and like, you know, someone doesn't have to cop the absolute and bad end of the deal, you know.
Yeah.
But like how you market that and celebrate that is actually a really odd thing.
Yeah.
And is that just bad business? You know what I mean?
I think, well, I guess like the analogy or the kind of statement he made, which was really great, was like if you go into a business negotiation with someone and you both walk away feeling like a little bit dissatisfied, it was probably like fair kind of deal.
Yeah.
Because like not one person is going like, yes, I totally won. And the other person going like, oh man, I just got screwed. And so I guess, it's the idea that if we want business to succeed in a way that is sustainable and predictable year on year, and we're in the business of like an agricultural product, like coffee is like a yearly harvest and it's a cyclical thing, that we kind of need everyone in that to be winning.
Yeah. But and that's kind of what I mean. Instead of the language being like everyone's leaving slightly dissatisfied and the overall longevity of the industry is like better off.
Yeah.
How does that shift from like, no, we're in that bracket, we're in that sweet spot where everyone is winning, and that shifting straight away.
Yeah. And it is difficult. I think, and Peter kind of himself said this in the interview, that like there's some real challenges there, and it's a long-term kind of conversation. And so I guess the whole point is, now with the Specialty Coffee Transaction Guide, there is a framework or a reference point that allows you to start having those other conversations, right? Whereas before it's like, well, we didn't even have visibility to be saying, well, are we winning or not? So I think it's like, just have that perspective so you can start the conversations and get that out there.
Asking people to get involved. As I heard about the stories of like, here are all our stats, this odd feeling of like fear came through. And I don't think we really touched on it throughout the episode, but the fact that you would just divulge all your sales and the way
what you're paying,
there was something like, I understand that there was, you can be everyone is anonymous to a degree. Like everything's kind of, there's a bit of a leap of faith. I don't know why that feels that way.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't, but.
Well, it is. We're in a highly competitive space, and businesses tend to hold their cards quite close unless they're like a social enterprise or a non-profit, where they're kind of saying, well, this is what our profitability is. No one wants to kind of go like, yeah, I'm making bank. Not necessarily. Or the opposite.
I'm not making bank.
Yeah. You want to kind of seem successful, but not too successful. But yeah, I think I agree. There is like a nervousness about it, but I think at the same time, like a lot of people in the specialty coffee industry have like a heart to try and improve the situation, right? We kind of have said we don't want to be commodity coffee. We want to do something better, and that we are connected to people's stories. And so I think it's, people knowing with the guide that all of the data and the information is anonymous. So it's not like any one person is being highlighted or any one company is being highlighted. It's all being anonymized. But at the same time, you can get a personalized report just for your business back, saying here's where you sit in comparison with all of the data we have. But yeah, I think people are a little nervous about that. But it's you don't even have to participate if you don't want to, but there's still the information out there.
I kind of wrote down a note, and this is more, I want your take on it. Does transparency stomp out creativity and innovation in coffee, because it basically lays out all the efficiencies and what's working and what's not? So people get that report and they go, cool, these are tried and true trends, and I'm going to just go towards that thing. It's like a path that's there. Obviously, these reports showing what's been done. There's no in between for like where you could go. Why would anyone deviate from that report?
I actually think that it's probably the opposite, in that as you have transparency and visibility, you can kind of see, okay, well, what's the starting point? What's the foundation that's actually happening? And then you can like dive off into different regions from there. Whether you're a roaster or a producer, you might say, okay, I can see that there's a trend for micro lots increasing and being rewarded a little bit more. In the country that I'm in, there's a pickup of that over time. Great. I'm going to start experimenting with micro lots. I'm going to start going there, or having it as part of my package that I can kind of deliver to people. But I think that without that visibility, you're kind of operating in the dark, and you can innovate, but the risk is huge, right? It's like, okay, innovation is always going into the unknown. But if you're starting at like if you started a new cafe and you had no idea what people drank, you couldn't see any other cafe menu, and you'd be like, I'm going to use this kind of cup and maybe this kind of milk, and you didn't have any standard to start from. Sure, you'd be trying a lot of different things, but the likelihood of your business failing is way greater. And that's like the landscape that a lot of coffee producers have been in historically, is like all they can look at is kind of what's happening around them in the country and going, well, here's the C market, which is all about commodity, mass-produced, kind of low-quality coffee. And here's what my neighbors are doing. So that's kind of what I have visibility on. The safe path is following that. It doesn't really encourage any progression further on. So it's almost like that. You can live into what you can see. Like if you have a role model, you're like, oh, there's someone who looks like me, who sounds like me, who comes from my background, pursuing this path. I can I can see a path for myself in that direction. So I think, the case studies of that are super valuable. But I think it's great to be able to kind of unpack some of these conversations with these super knowledgeable people. And I think the cool thing is that you can actually get involved in this particular topic. So if you haven't listened to the episode, go back and have a listen through Peter Roberts kind of describing what the Specialty Coffee Transaction Guide is. And you can actually join if you're a coffee roaster or an importer or an exporter. You can actually join as a data donor and put all of your information in about your sales contracts. They get completely anonymized. It's super safe, pretty easy to do. And all of the information that goes into that. There's only 134 data donors. I think he was saying 134, something like that at the moment, which is incredible for the amount of coffee and coffee companies. So if you're listening, get on board and get involved, because I think it's going to really help us build some momentum behind the specialty coffee visibility and how it's traded.
Oh, this just in.
Oh,
I'm getting a feed.
As we talk about the market, I think we've got the latest update here from Mr. Oliver in the field, dialing in with our market report. I think he's on the road at the moment.
He's on the road, yeah.
What have you got to say, Ollie?
Hey Ben, hey Liam, thanks for the passover. Great to hear from you guys. It's always a pleasure. Today it is Wednesday, the 3rd of December, and we find the market at 373.45 on H or March contracts. What we're seeing is that the market has basically been trading sideways, but that's been in a big range since August. So on the upper side of that range, the market's been at 407, but on the lower side of the range, it's been as low as 350. And what's encouraging is that we are seeing the markets trade on the lower side, so the 370 and below, over the past couple of weeks, which is encouraging news. Factors that are encouraging the market to come off, of course, the tariffs have been lifted. Supply is looking good from Brazil, Central America, from Colombia, from Vietnam. And then the key issues of rain in Brazil, whilst they haven't been perfect, they have been slightly below average. There is still enough moisture in Brazil to see good crops, and it's looking good for 26-27. However, factors that are giving support to us higher C market, one of those big ones is that we are seeing unemployment data and inflation data from the USA, and we're actually anticipating those numbers to solidify at the end of this week, and that could actually provide a bit of support to the coffee C market price. It could pop up a little before it comes back down again. We're also seeing ICE numbers. They have risen a little bit, but only to 409,000 bags. And that's only a very slight increase. And, essentially what's that showing is showing that coffee is not at destination. It's still at origin, and that will take time to flow through. Of course, we've got Christmas coming up, and that will cause sort of slowing down of the supply as everyone's Christmas presents get where they need to. So key dates for the future. So Jan 2026, we're going to get some clarity on the Brazil projected numbers for the 26-27 crop. And then, of course, May 2026 is a big one. That's when the Brazil crop comes online, and the market will usually react based on what that looks like. So that's it from me, guys. And look, I've really enjoyed your Specialty Coffee Transaction Guide conversation with Pete Roberts at Atlanta. That's something that's very close to our hearts here at Condesa. And of course, knowledge is power. Roasters being able to see that and sharing their numbers, and consumers being able to see that and understand what that means to them is so important. So we love that. We love what you're doing. And back to you guys in the studio. Of course, it's just coffee, and thank you.
That's incredible.
He's ear to the ground, knows what's going. Thanks so much, Ollie.
That's it. It doesn't matter where he is in the world. He's bringing it home for us, and obviously valuable insight as we talk about the Sustainable Coffee Transaction Guide, Specialty Coffee Transaction Guide. Not even, hopefully it's sustainable, but as the Specialty Coffee Transaction Guide and the C market, we're kind of getting both sides of the story there. So thanks for that. Do we have a little bit of time for some news?
Oh, we do.
With that intro, Liam, I hear that you've got a little something to bring to the table.
We do. There was a little case study that we've, a few reports coming in that's about flavored coffee. Now, I know that
the topic at the moment.
The US, one pump of this, one pump of that. They're putting flavored syrups into their coffee. That is just standard protocol.
It's how I started my coffee career, just working in Glory Jeans here in Australia. Just a little bit of caramel, a little bit of orange flavoring.
Right, that's right. Well, it's showing that 75% of UK young drinkers also are choosing the flavored syrups to put in their coffees.
Nice.
And we're starting to see that in competition now, aren't we?
Yeah, well, maybe not so much flavored syrups, but it's kind of at the niche end where more around the idea of infused coffees. Have you heard of these?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
But like, what's the difference between a syrup? If you're adding flavor,
Yeah.
what is the difference? If you're doing flavor manipulation,
Yeah.
where's the line here?
Where's the line? The line is honestly pretty blurry, or certainly getting blurry in that post-harvest processing of coffee once the coffee cherries have been picked. I mean, obviously, when you're putting a little pump of hazelnut in your syrup, yeah, a little creme brulee, it's delicious. I think that's kind of pretty easy. Everyone goes, okay, this is an additive to it. But obviously, at the coffee producing and processing side, you can infuse or you can co-ferment coffees. So say you pulp your coffee cherries and then you add like passion fruit into the fermentation tank. So you're fermenting the coffee and some other item. And that's generally considered that's the real blurry line, I think, because the flavor of the coffee is sometimes being changed, but it's still from internally from the coffee, I'd say. And then you've got infused coffees, which can be done in a number of different ways, but often they're kind of being like steamed. So the green coffee is being infused with flavor after it's kind of the green, or maybe it was infused during the processing. It's a very, very gray area. So for example, you might steam your green coffee with like jasmine flower, use jasmine flowers, steam the aromatics through the green coffee and then export it. So in that way, for me, I think there's definitely a case of like that's an additive from external to the coffee into the coffee, right? Like that jasmine wasn't in there beforehand. So fairly similar to a pump of syrup in my mind. But it's an interesting different space.
From a barista background, just for those listening in that are not in Australia, we really don't have that culture. I find that quite fascinating. I had no idea that the UK were this kind of prominent with syrups.
Yeah.
Because I remember going to the US and walking into, middle America, and we're at this random diner, and it was like a candy shop, but like it was so standard for them, like an entire bench space. Like that's a lot of real estate with over like genuinely like 30 different choices.
Yep.
Here in Australia, it's standard to have maybe 2 flavors, and it is vanilla, caramel, maybe hazelnut, maybe 3.
Yep.
That's it. And if you're getting something else, it's, the only syrups that will be in a cafe here are for smoothies. Like you might have passion fruit or mango or strawberry for milkshakes and stuff like that. But yeah, fascinating. Crazy.
Well, I think it's probably more common than we realize, right? Like we're probably talking from a little specialty coffee bubble here. But if you look at some of the larger chains that are around Australia, Europe, UK, US, and even certainly internationally in Asia as well, most of the chain stores will have like a certain number of syrups and flavorings there. And that's probably where the large volume of coffee drinkers are going, right? So we might be talking from a little niche, but yeah, it's interesting, I think, when they're saying that a lot of young coffee drinkers, 75% of young coffee drinkers are favoring like syrups added. I think what this might be useful for us to remember is that it's telling us that they're after interesting, intensely flavored kind of experiences or beverage experiences. And so again, we go back to that idea of the infused or co-fermented, or even just those really extended fermentation coffees, like the big anaerobic coffees. Maybe there's an increasing place for those as a stepping stone for coffee drinkers who came from like, I'm going to start my coffee drinking experience going to a franchise store, having a big whipped kind of cream flavored mocha frappuccino, and then you serve them like a extended anaerobic ferment Colombian that's full of like guava and blueberry and is really in your face. They're probably going to be like, oh wow, this is what I like, this is what I enjoy. And so I think there's a good pathway here that we're developing.
We've actually got some family coming over from the States. They've never traveled to Australia before, and that's actually been a really hot kind of conversation point for me and my partner, because of the difference in palate. And I think it would be really interesting. Like one, we've already talked about doing a cafe guide, and that's coming out soon, guys, here in Melbourne. But like a tasting guide for those that come from different places and how to appreciate and what to look for and the bridging kind of way to get there. Because like you said, her family are used to that. They're used to like pretty black coffee, but adding creamers, like flavored milk, like shelf-stable milk things.
Tea, high fat percentage.
Which, that alone, that being like shelf-stable freaks me out. Any dairy, like fake dairy on a thing, I'm like, what? But yeah, like exactly that. Yeah. Do we take them to like the specialty infused experience to kind of bridge that gap? Or is it with more specialty drinks that are like tuned versions of the Starbucks creamy thing to a higher,
higher quality, a higher level. Yeah, I think it's a good challenge for us as specialty coffee professionals on the beverage and the service side to be thinking about how do we bring people into our world? How do we help them have stepping stones from first entry as maybe a young consumer or from a different market segment into kind of an appreciation and value of what kind of coffee by itself can offer. And so that's like, it's just the equivalent of someone coming in and ordering a latte with 3 sugars in it. And you're like, sure, no worries. We'll add 3 sugars, enjoy it. Next time they come in, you've got a little bit more of a relationship. Like, hey, we actually spend a lot of time refining our roast degree to make sure that the coffee is very sweet and doesn't need a lot of sugar. Would you like to try it with just 1 sugar this time? And they're like, okay, I'll give it a shot. You kind of seem a little trustworthy, And they try it and they go, wow, okay. This
next thing
I didn't even need it.
They're having a pour over.
That's it. Yeah. Then they just go, nah, you're wrong. I wanted my dark roast kind of heavy body thing. And I think that's also what we need to realize is that it's allow people to make that journey if they want to, but otherwise give them what they enjoy. Give them what they enjoy.
And quietly judge them behind them.
No, Liam, no judging. Only in coffee competitions. And in the competitions, it's interesting. The line that the World Coffee Championships have drawn is that it's basically, nothing should be added to the coffee after it reaches that green coffee stage. Right, so once the green coffee has been dried and is ready for roasting, nothing should be added at that point. So no infusions at that point. But that co-fermentation, they're saying in the competition, that's kind of an allowable kind of exploration to be happening. So
speaking of competition, you've got a little news for us, don't you?
Oh, yes. Well, it's going to be a little delayed at the time of recording here, but if you're listening to this coffee break, about a week and a half ago, Australia had their most recent national coffee championships. And so we've got some new Australian champions on the pedestal. It was a pretty amazing weekend. Yes, we've got the can cheers. That was what it was like at the competition stage, a little bit louder.
Just bringing people there.
Transporting you to the competition stage. Yes, we had it was the Australian Barista Championships, the National Barista Championships, the Australian Latte Art Championships, and Brewers Cup Championships. And so we've got 3 new champions representing Australia in 2026. We have the amazing Gabriel Tan of Veneziano Coffee in Melbourne. He took out the Australian Barista Championships. He's going to be representing us in Panama in 2026. And trying to fill some rather large boots there, Gabriel, with Jack just winning the World Barista Championships, our last Australian champ. No pressure. And then we had the new Australian Latte Art champion, Amy Zhang, a returning champ, took out the title once again. And seeing some of Amy's work on stage was just kind of mind-melting. My latte art is like an abstract blob, and just very sad. I remember when you asked me to do a little throwdown with Samurai Shin about latte art on video, and I just choked.
Yeah, I do.
Thanks. I really appreciate that.
I loved that moment.
It's always good to put a coffee professional in their place. Like, yeah. Talk about sensory skills, but try your latte art.
Yeah. What people can do in a cup now with free pour. I come from my little nickname, which hasn't come up in a while now, is little etchy boy, because I love to grab and kind of draw in it. But the ability to pour directly from from the jug and these incredible designs. Outstanding.
It's
incredible.
It's crazy. I mean, I remember competing in cup tasting, which is literally just taking a spoon and transferring it from the cup to your face to slurp. And like my nerves on stage were like shaking, like little spoon coming to me. These guys got to hold the jug just like super precise. It's crazy. I don't know how they do it. And we also had a third Australian champion announced. This was for the Brewers Cup Championship, and it was none other than guest of the show, longtime supporter of the podcast, Mr. Simon Gawthron.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
And like our here might be a little late to the party. However, we had Coach Carlos.
Coach Carlos.
Tusa. Yeah, Coach Carlos. That's what I've been calling it on the pod last week. And he preemptively just held down. He's like, by the time this episode comes out, Simon's going to be the champ.
He called it.
He called it.
He got it. He was right. It was
amazing.
And, you know, it was incredible to watch Simon's performance, actually. He really brought, you know, there's been an increasing movement for people to slow down the competition experience, bring a little bit of mindfulness and presence for the judges as well as for themselves. Sometimes it can feel a little forced and like a little, you know, practiced, and which obviously it is practiced. So you've got to make it feel natural and bring yourself into that moment. And he really managed that. And it was pretty cool. Even just sitting in the audience, you could see everyone, you know, the stillness come over people as they went on a journey. Yeah. So it was very exciting. Huge congrats to all of those new champs. It's going to be exciting to see all around the world as the next round of national competitions emerge and where they're going to be competing. 2026 Barista Championships goes to Panama. Amazing. And then we have World of Coffee Brussels and World of Coffee Bangkok next year, where more championships are going to be happening. That's going to be a lot of fun following along with that.
Breakdown.
Yeah.
You'll hear all the results from our main man here.
We'll be bringing them to you nice and live. We're going to be at most of those competitions next year, covering things and meeting up with great industry professionals. So keep following along. And I think that's all we've got time for today for our coffee break. Thanks, everyone, for listening. If you haven't already, go back and listen to the Peter Roberts interview, Specialty Coffee Transaction Guide. Get all knowledged up on how coffee is traded. Please follow along, like and subscribe to the podcast. Please share it around. This is for you, for the industry. So, yeah, thanks for all of your support so far. We've been getting some amazing comments from people listening to some of the past episodes with like Colin Harmon and Maxwell Colin Dashwood. So many great guests on and more to come. Yeah. So thanks, everyone. And we'll see you again next time. Ciao.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to have a quick word from one of our sponsors, Apex Lab. Elevate your coffee experience with Apex Lab mineral concentrates. Apex Lab's precision-engineered formulas, including tonic, jam, and lilac, are designed to enhance the coffee's natural flavors. Not going to change it, it's just going to enhance it. It's going to bring out the vibrant acidity, the rich sweetness, or if you use lilac, it might bring out those delicate floral notes that you've been looking for. Trusted by world-class cafes and even barista champions, Apex Lab helps you unlock your coffee's full potential. Discover more at apexlab.com. Wait, where was that again, Sonam?
The internet.
Oh, okay. Thought he was going to say the website. Thanks.
We put so much effort into our espresso, dosing, distributing, tamping, weighing. But then in so many cases, a cafe will just take whatever milk they happen to have available and throw it in and call it a day.
I know, and milk actually makes up 70% of all coffees ordered. So you could argue that great milk is just as important as great coffee.
Definitely could argue that.
I couldn't, I did.
Our great sponsors of the podcast, Riverina Fresh, have a milk that is made for coffee specifically, and it's used by some of the best cafes around the country and, in fact, World Barista Champion.
Yeah, this gold range that they actually have here was designed alongside a World Barista Champion to be richer and more indulgent to pair perfectly with coffee.
If you want to check it out, they are doing a sweet deal for Australian-based cafes, and you can get a free trial.
That's exactly right. You can get a free trial straight to your door. Just head to riverinafresh.com.au and see if your cafe is eligible. And why wouldn't you? Serve up the same milk as World Barista Champions. Today's episode is brought to you by our amazing sponsors at Eco Barista. The reason I sound like this is because they got massages at our stand at Mice, and so I'm getting a massage while recording this message for you. They're the best sponsor of the pod that we could have had. They have the best eco products. This probably sounds really pornographic, but it's not. I'm just getting a massage. They have the best eco-friendly coffee products. They got coffee bags that you can design yourself. They got cups. They got iced coffee cups. They got everything you need. So make sure to support them because they support us. Head to ecobarista.com.au and get 15% off your first purchase when you sign up. Oh, mama, that's good.